Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're analyzing a truly fascinating paper by Sergio da Silva and Sergio Bonini. It's all about why society assigns moral or even personality-driven meaning to prime numbers. You know, prime numbers are basically the elementary building blocks of mathematics. They are the ultimate icons of pure, undeniable rationality. But when they enter the public sphere, well, something kind of wild happens. They get enchanted. Instead of just being boring old quantities, we treat them like they have an intrinsic message, a personality, or even some sort of moral charge. So we're going to unpack exactly how that happens.
I mean, it's a pretty funny question when you look at it purely logically, right? Do numbers have personalities? Obviously not. But culturally, we totally treat certain prime numbers as if they carry some sort of intrinsic destiny. We really need to ask how this shift from legitimate, rigorous mathematical curiosity to basically superstition-adjacent pattern-making actually happens. Because look, these meanings aren't just quirky little internet jokes, they actually shape how non-specialists like us understand evidence, uncertainty, and what counts as a rational explanation in our modern world.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our agenda. We're starting with enchanted prime numbers, then looking at 73, the sitcom prime, 67, the viral meme, and 666, the demonic palindrome. After that, we'll dive into why our brains believe, and finally wrap up with math without the magic. Let's jump right in. Section 1, 73, the sitcom prime, a popular TV favorite.
We're beginning with a number that got heavily popularized by a famous TV sitcom as literally the best number. It is a perfect example of how a piece of media can take a completely neutral, abstract mathematical entity and just turn it into a massive cultural phenomenon. It turns out 73 actually became this badge of intellectual identity for fans, all because of a really tightly packaged bundle of mathematical coincidences. In the show, characters rattle off this impressive-sounding list of properties about the number 73, treating this cluster of mathematical alignments as undeniable proof of its superiority. So it shifts from audiences thinking, oh hey, that's neat, to wow, this number really means something special.
But notice the stark contrast here between the cultural meaning, which is basically this prestige-marked aesthetic of being clever, and the actual, modest mathematical reality. Mathematically speaking, it is absolutely true that 73 is the 21st prime number. Its reversal, 37, is the 12th prime. And the digits 7 and 3, also prime numbers. These are completely correct arithmetic facts, but they're also entirely contingent. The mere existence of these properties doesn't mean the number was somehow destined for greatness, you know? It's really just a highly curated description.
So why does it feel so profoundly significant to us? Well, the researchers explain that this math mystique feels true because of something called authority cueing. This is where the sitcom character's perceived intelligence makes the claim feel naturally plausible to the audience. Because the character presenting the number is coded as an absolute genius, the audience essentially borrows that legitimacy. Suddenly, the number isn't just a number anymore. It's a token of sophistication that you can use to signal your own cleverness to other fans.
Moving on to Section 2, 67, the viral meme, an internet phenomenon. Let's see how this dynamic builds when we transition from the polished world of scripted television to the wild, organic spread of online meme culture. Out there, repetition alone creates an incredible sense of meaning. This seemingly empty meme circulated online is a social signal, literally just people repeating 6-7 to each other to show they belong to an inside joke. But here's the kicker. It gained this whole veneer of depth because 6-7 actually has some highly specific mathematical properties. And once the internet figured those out, the meme completely transformed. To validate the math for just a second, 67 is what's known as a superprime. Why? Because it's the 19th prime number, and 19 is also prime. In the world of prime numbers, a superprime is just a prime whose index position happens to also be a prime. It's a really neat classificatory trait.
Furthermore, 67 belongs to a brilliantly named group called a sexy prime triplet, alongside 61 and 73. This provides some incredibly catchy real mathematical labels that end up legitimizing the meme. In mathematics, sexy primes are just pairs of prime numbers that differ by exactly 6. So because 67 forms a pair with 61 and another pair with 73, it sits smack in the middle of a triplet. These are highly specific, super catchy mathematical hooks.
And this brilliantly illustrates how an essentially empty social token retrofits mathematical facts to rationalize its stickiness online. It creates this wild illusion of destiny. The story the internet tells implies that this meme hides a deeper, almost conspiratorial code. People start thinking,
Whoa, we didn't just pick 67 randomly. We were subconsciously drawn to its mathematical perfection. But the mathematical truth? Way simpler. 67 is just a prime with optional descriptive labels. The math is basically retroactively used to justify why the meme went viral in the first place.
Section 3. 666, the demonic palindrome. A terrifying prime.
Now we arrive at our third case study, looking at a prime number with a terrifyingly dark reputation. Here we get to see what happens when a deeply ingrained cultural taboo crashes headfirst into the infinite search space of mathematics. Behold the Belphegor prime. It's a massive prime palindrome with 666 right at its center, flanked by 13 zeros on each side and capped with ones. Seriously, if you were looking for a number that looks like it was designed by a horror movie scriptwriter, this is it.
The narrative really invites us to think that because this specific number is prime, it's somehow an oracle endorsing supernatural evil. But the authors emphasize that the embedding of 666 and those 13 zeros is just a feature of decimal representation in a huge search space. It is not some number-theoretic essence of evil. Mathematically speaking, if you just keep inserting zeros into a palindromic string, eventually the irregular texture of prime distribution dictates that one of these constructions will just happen to be prime.
The whole negative vibe of 666 actually comes from ancient interpretive traditions like gematria. This perfectly demonstrates how culturally pre-labeled taboos get imported directly into mathematics. The number 666 isn't intrinsically evil, right? In Christian tradition, it comes from the Book of Revelation, and scholars treat it as a letter-number cipher, gematria, where the name Nero Caesar, rendered in Hebrew, calculates the 666. It is a completely historical, textual tradition that is entirely detached from the mathematical property of divisibility.
Section 4. Why our brains believe. Cognitive biases.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. If these meanings are purely cultural and anthropological, why do they feel so incredibly convincing to our individual minds? How does a historical cipher or a sitcom script completely override our rational understanding of numbers? Well, the paper outlines a rapid-fire collaboration of cognitive biases that actively convert cultural coincidences into perceived significance. We have apophenia, which forces us to see designed connections among totally unrelated facts. We commit type 1 errors, mistaking pure chance, like that spooky Belphegor prime, for a deliberate pattern. We fall for the narrative fallacy, where a tidy bundle of facts is just accepted as destiny. And finally, confirmation bias ensures we only collect the details that support our new favorite number while completely ignoring the rest.
On top of all that, we are huge victims of selection effects and survivorship bias. We focus heavily on the successful hits, like 73 and 67, while completely ignoring the countless prime numbers that, well, lack a good narrative marketing team. Out of the infinite sea of prime numbers, only the ones with catchy labels and compact, easily shareable stories actually rise to the surface. We don't see the millions of primes that have absolutely zero cultural resonance, which gives us this completely false impression that primes inherently want to tell us a story.
Section 5. Math without the magic. Separating myth and math.
We finally arrive at our synthesis, separating the anthropology of symbols from the pure wonder of mathematics. It is absolutely legitimate to find prime numbers fascinating. I mean, they organize some of the deepest, most open problems in all of math. But we really have to draw a boundary. As the researchers so clearly map out, our cultural schemas supply ready-made interpretive templates, and our cognitive biases turn that salience into outright mathematical superstition. Culture gives us the symbols, like an evil demon or a prestigious TV genius, and our biased brains seamlessly stitch those symbols right onto mathematical coincidence.
There's a really powerful takeaway from this study. It reminds us that mathematical curiosity doesn't need to imply destiny, virtue, or magic to remain fundamentally fascinating. Primes are absolutely amazing all on their own. They don't need a moral charge, a sitcom endorsement, or a viral meme to be considered the profound building blocks of our logical universe.
So I'll leave you with this. The next time you see a mystical mathematical pattern, ask yourself, is the universe really sending you a hidden message, or is your brain just successfully falling for an ancient cultural trick? This has been such a fascinating look at the intersection of math, culture, and psychology. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the patterns you see out there.